Hey, what's up, y'all? We got another great guest, so stay tuned. So, what's up, everybody? Welcome to The Empire, where we like to engage with everyone from pastors to actors, rappers to trappers, and everybody in between. And guess what? Guess what? Guess what? We have another amazing guest for today, and he's the executive director of Project Fighting Chance. He's going to talk to us about his life, what's going on with the program, and so many other things. And that gentleman's name is Terry Boykins. Welcome to the Empire.
Thank you, Antonio. What's up? What's up? What's up?
What's up? How you doing, man?
It's busy, but hey, we doing what we got to do out here.
Got you. Busy's good though, right?
Busy is very good.
Got you. How has your morning been so far?
Morning's been good. I've been getting ready for you. I've been, stayed up all night. Make sure I was up here on time. So we ready to go. We didn't want you to penalize us. We didn't want you to get us in a ring and knock us out for not being on your show this morning.
That part was it a TKO, a TKO, a
A
TKO.
TKO or KO. If you get
Uh-huh.
a KO, it's better than a TKO. That means it's done.
Okay, I see you. I see you. So were you nervous last night? Were you up and tossing and turning last night? What was going on?
Yeah, everybody that just heard what you just said probably knows that you're not talking to me about being nervous. And so not too much up toss and turning. We've been we got enough fights that we got to deal with these young people on the streets.
Very true. Very, very true. Very true. Well, like Terry, since we're onto that page, can you please let
Yes.
everybody know who you are and the things that you do?
Okay, my name is Terry Boykins. I am the executive director of Project Fighting Chance, which is an award-winning, nationally recognized after-school program that deals in boxing, amateur boxing, and arts enrichment that is mainly focused in on um, dealing with issues of youth fitness, reducing childhood obesity, reducing childhood food insecurity. But more importantly, with those things, we can really manage and control. But our main focus when we get up and go to that gym, our focus, our training, our staff is keyed in on reducing childhood violence, aggression, and trauma. That's what we do when we put our staff to work, when we put our skill sets to work, when we put our best practices to work in the community here in San Bernardino.
Awesome. And I personally just want to thank, you, Terry, and the whole staff and the board for the work that you guys are doing, right, to help the community. Because I think I heard the saying recently, which is, I'm not sure, don't quote me on it, but I think it's Frederick Douglass, which is like something along the lines, which is like it's easier to train a child and to teach a child than it is to retrain an adult,
Yes,
into a new way. And so, thank you, because children are definitely the future, right?
that's a powerful statement. I mean, when you really think about it, that's what we really try every day. Antonio, we try very hard to make sure we can catch young people before they get so caught into their trauma that it carries into their adult life. And this is where you repeat cycles. This is why a lot of times you've got families that are caught into the inability to break a cycle because of trauma, particularly at childhood stages within communities.
Wow, that makes so much sense. And I will definitely go a little bit deeper into that, because some people don't think that there's trauma or generational trauma. And I've heard, and I can believe it, that sometimes trauma can be passed on generational through like DNA. Like some people even say
Mhm.
that Black Americans have suffered trauma from past slavery and stuff like that. So it's definitely a topic. I would definitely get into that too as well. Um,
Excellent.
but Terry, can you give us a brief story about where you grew up, how you grew up, all the way up to the man that you are today?
Oh boy, so we're going to me. So I'm originally from San Diego. I grew up in Southeast San Diego, and this was an era that I, grew up in the late '60s, early '70s. As a teen and graduated high school. Give a shout out to Morris High School. And, went to college at Cal State San Bernardino, majored in business, marketing and management and communications minor. Went to work in corporate America and have had the opportunity to move and travel around the country in various positions, and was able to come back to Southern California in San Bernardino, and was able to raise a family, have two children that have gone on to achieve their degrees, in one from UCLA, the other one from UC Berkeley, in the respective fields that they're in. And biggest thing I actually was able to do after leaving corporate America was understand a little bit more about social entrepreneurship. My mother at the time, I think it was about just being committed to working in the community and meeting the needs of the community. But I pictured the issue of impacting community with a more business lens. A lot of things that I saw that nonprofits were doing were very good, but there's a lot of passion and a lot of intensity to do good, but there wasn't too many plans. And you're not going to move the needle much if there's not an effective plan. Very passionate about things, but what are you really changing? And that's when I understood the economics of the impact that nonprofits have on society, both locally, nationally, and even internationally. But it's about, how do you impact the economy as a nonprofit? How do you make life better in communities so that the marketplace moves, it responds to outcomes for its residents, its participants? And so I always had an interest. I saw the goodwill that my mother was committed to, and as a church, as a Christian woman that really did well by the community. But her capacity to truly move the issues that people were bringing to her to a self-sufficiency level wasn't really in her bandwidth at the time. And I think this is just the era we grew in. And I did not want to look at that particular pathway without having people become accountable, that you're not just looking for help and assistance. We hope that you're trying to get somewhere so that you are no longer draining the system that is helping you, but you now become a resource for those that need help from you now. And I began to look at it that way. And I began to really charge people with not becoming dependent on the system, but really becoming a depositor so that they can basically create equity and interest and dividends that will give something back to society.
Wow, that's awesome. And so that mindset kind of comes from being a part of the corporate world, right?
It does.
Gotcha. And was there a specific industry that you were working in the corporate world?
I was in the consumer products industry, particularly. One was in the health and beauty aids industry for a number of years. And then I went over to the confection and snack food divisions for a major corporation, and all consumable. You use it, you benefit from it, you go buy more. So this is sustainability, so you got to really look at your product. And I looked at this intentionally with regards to becoming a social entrepreneur. And as I, began to engage with Project Finding Chance, what exactly is it that we are, wash, rinse, repeat, and you get ready for the next cycle, which is, what you have to look at dealing with in terms of issues, especially when dealing with trauma, because it's going to always exist. Anytime you have human nature, you're going to have trauma. It's just a part of society. That goes back biblically, it's Cain and Abel. You're going to be asking humans the question about their accountability. And so it's wash, rinse, and repeat. And so in the consumer goods industry, I had the opportunity to do that. With this, it's really about making sure that the team understands the process in which they are charged with being at the ready, so that they can be able to understand that laundry that's going to be coming into their possession you've got to get that cleaned up. You've got to get it dried up. You got to get it ironed up. You got to get it ready to wear again so that, you can look your part. And that's basically how I look at this whole component of people who want to care for people. But I come in it from a business back room. What happens when you want to care so much for people, but you don't even have the resources to get gas money in your vehicle to even reach them, or you don't have the resources to pay for the risk of that comes with running an organization of covering your insurance premium, or to be able to meet payroll. You got all this passion, you got all this stuff that's going on, but do you have the business construct to really put infrastructure in place to promote effective change?
Wow, I love that because as I get older, and obviously, you know, so many things I want to say. Because you say social entrepreneur, this has been in my mind, right? So, entrepreneur means basically a business owner, someone striving for a business, and then social is someone who's dealing with society, like social. I was gonna say socialism, but like sociology, which is dealing with people in groups, and so it's like the combination of the two, which is a business that deals with society and people. Am I on the right page?
Correct. You're correct.
Okay. And so what I really love what you said, and I think this kind of happens from people who are like in the art field and stuff like that, is that they have really good hearts and good intentions, but they don't know the how to run the business side of it. They
Correct.
don't know how to make the business side of it. And so, you know, what were some of the, and we'll definitely get into the boxing, ladies and gentlemen. Um, what were some of the things that you would do to change when you say, oh, we want to help this community, but we don't even have gas to put into our car. We don't even have food for lunch to pay for ourselves, So what are things that you put into place to help make funding come in so that way you can help others? In essence, how do you create systems to help yourself in order to help others?
Okay. Well, there's a number of questions that you have there. Let me try with some of the first one. So the key is there a problem? There's so many times that people are passionate about something, but it's their problem. It's their issue that they wanted to resolve. It was something that happened to their grandmother or their loved ones, and they want to set in motion to fix something that there may already exist a service or a program in place, but we have this need to label it for ourselves versus partnering and being a participant in somebody else's dream. We end up creating all these illusionary resolves that we're going to do it better. We're going to do it
Mm.
better than the person who, had this situation 15 years ago, but because it happened to us, we're going to take out a business license, and we're going to create this, but they're already working on leukemia. Now you got somebody else. Now you got 50 people working on. But what happens if you pull together? What happened if you collaborated? What if you collectively understood what the real problem was, and
Mm.
not your own agenda of responding to something you're passionate about? So that's the number one thing: is, are we trying to solve a problem? Number two, do we have the capacity in our passion to resolve issues that have productive outcomes? And that's something that you have to start looking at resources. What exactly is it that you're trying to do, and for what duration? Sometimes people stay in their passion longer than they're effective of offering a solution to the community or to society. And you have to really understand what your duration is, or your ability to pivot, or your ability to evolve. We see this in technology, and it is not much different than we deal with as social entrepreneurs. You can't stay there and expect for an effective return on investment if you don't improve or change your product, because the competition will run you over or you'll be obsolete. And that's oftentimes what happens in a number of nonprofits, that they become obsolete because they're so tied to their passion that they really don't understand how to shift and how to pivot into a conversion to be more relevant in times ahead. And so that is something I'm very keen on: is what exactly are the objectives? Sometimes people call them KPIs or key performance indicators. SWOT analysis, you're dealing with the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats. Do you assess that? Do you understand, even within your own limitations, are there market conditions that's basically preventing you from being effective? And so, having had the opportunity to work extensively with fatherhood engagement, having the opportunity to work extensively with regards to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation system in California, working with intimate partner violence, and working with sex trafficking, sexual assault, child maltreatment. We have to look at those are human nature types of vices. And if we don't understand humans or man in his environment or her environment or their environment, then we are not doing anything but being passionate about something versus trying to understand how to improve something to be more efficient in the economy that we live in.
Wow. I love it. And it's really seems like it comes down to being problem solving in the end of the day. And I like the
That's it.
pivot. I'm sorry, say it again.
No, that is actually it. At the end of the day, that's exactly what it comes down to. What am I going to do today more efficiently that I don't have to do tomorrow?
I like that. I also love the pivot conversation. I always feel like that's how people stay relevant, right? Is being able to pivot, make moves. And I even heard recently, and I'm not sure, I think it was Toyota, like they're doing like a 500-year business plan. So they like
Yes.
thinking that far ahead,
Yes.
which I find
No,
super
you're
amazing.
absolutely right. And I'm sharing, people are responding to, I'm sharing out the link so that people can get a chance they want to know where to get into the conversation, where to view you in your podcast. So I'm sharing that with them right now.
Okay, perfect, perfect. And speaking of which, those who are watching live right now or the playback, we're here with Terry Boykins, and we talked a lot about where he came from, project, Fighting Chance, and we're just gonna keep on going. So if you're just joining in, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this video. We're gonna get a little bit deeper with him. So Terry, I wanted to ask you, since Project Fighting Chance has to do primarily with boxing, correct?
Boxing is what we do, but
Right?
it's the community part that we really are in. But boxing, we do pretty well. I think people would agree
Mhm.
that we know a little bit about that. And of
No,
course,
no,
me and
little 1, 2, little 1, 2.
a little bit.
So I guess a good question, and maybe some people might be asking this, is like, how does boxing help a troubled youth?
Well, I think you have to go to the founder of the organization, Ian Franklin, who's the head coach, and really is focused on looking at how it helped him. This is a gentleman who's a grown man and was impacted by childhood trauma, and found a vehicle, not just in the sport of boxing, but the comprehension of what it did to help him feel better, as he often says, releasing those happy endorphins. As a as an abused child, and I think somewhat neglected child, he found this particular sport, and not just as a champion athlete that he pursued, but it was really the teachings and the education that he knew could not only propel somebody into a competitive level, but what it could do to help them address some of their own issues, some of the man in the mirror issues, the woman in the mirror issues that he was able to benefit from. And so he mastered the art of teaching boxing on both a competitive level as well as the therapeutic level, which we employ both those practices at Project Fighting Chance today.
Gotcha. And so what would be the difference between approaching boxing at a competitive level and at a therapeutic level? Because you're still punching a bag at the end of the day, right?
Well, you're punching the bag, but I think it's the athleticism. I think it's, man against man, wit against wit, move against
Mhm.
move, stamina against stamina, conditioning, training. One corner. That's why when you start talking about in the blue corner, in the red corner, you have these opposing, entities that America, society, loves competition. They love sports. I
Yes.
think that's why the industries are so big. But they also love this whole who's going to win. You always want to put a bet on somebody that you believe is going to win. And so that's the competitive nature. That's the athleticism. That's the training, the conditioning, the stamina, the style, the approach, the readiness. On one end, which we're fascinated is as human beings, we're fascinated with humans competing against each other, um, whether team sports or individual sports. That's one thing. But the biggest fight that I think man has is within himself, and that's oftentimes when he will become a victor, or he will succumb to his traumas. And so boxing gives you an opportunity to participate in both. You fight with your opponent, but the biggest fight, I think, is about yourself. It is the man in the mirror. It is your skepticism, your issues, your doubts, your weaknesses, your vulnerabilities. Can you overcome those when you have been encountering them since a child? You've always been told you're no good, or you're not worth anything, or somebody's better than you, or you don't matter. And so you grew up with that battle, that fight stays, you know, um, in your corner, and it never lets you out of your corner, and it keeps you in your corner, and it can control you. And I think what we've done is, if you come to Project Fighting Chance, you'll see it from the main street, which is in big letters, I am a champion. So we begin to help children process before they even come to the gym in the way there. They know where they're coming. But when they get there every day, they get a chance to walk into this space where they are a champion. They get to believe in themselves. And I think if we're able to start children in that particular mindset, that affirmation early enough, we will get more progressive, successful, um, happier adults.
And I love that because, the truth of the matter is that I think we need to make a routine of having affirmations for us, even I think from life till death. And so the sooner we can address knowing how to speak positive to ourselves, the better we'll be and live a more fulfilled life and be more, excuse me, a more potential and potent influence on society and the world by being positive, having a positive mindset, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming I just want to ask this question because I think it's probably might logical. Maybe some people might be wondering: is this like, boxing is a physical sport, So wouldn't boxing make a troubled child with anger issues more violent?
Boxing is a multifaceted enterprise. The the public, the world usually sees boxing based on the televised broadcasts of walking to a major arena auditorium, in this corner introducing da 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 in that
Hmm.
corner. But boxing fitness, boxing training, usually is a physical conditioning preparation. You're dealing with equipment, the heavy bags, the jump rope, the running, the training. It has nothing to do with going against an opposing party. It is about you beginning to understand your body, your hands, your eye, your mind, your eye hand coordination, your energy. Um, that right there is the individual part that Product Fighting Chances really worked on significantly, in training other people how to use the fitness component to help them deal with themselves, from a health perspective as well as from a mental health perspective. Um, Very little in the scheme of things that we do is really boxing competition. The
Mm.
majority of youth that come into our program are there because they're dealing with something in their life. They're dealing with trauma. They're dealing with maybe a health or maybe a body image. They want to change a little bit about how they see themselves. They may be dealing with obesity. They
Yeah.
may be that chunky child that basically is getting teased all the time and has never been trained or taught how to use physical fitness as a way to help condition themselves, particularly in inner city. It's not inexpensive to belong to a gym, or if you have transportation insecurity, you can't get to a gym at, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You have to use something that's in your own community. And so this is what we've provided, to underserved populations, that there's something that is, within distance that can give you the same benefits that people are going to pay big, good money for. But now you have opportunity to, number one, understand it. And number two, you have ability to participate in it. So most of what we do, if you come to Project Fighting Chance, there's a limited group of individuals that will ever participate in what you're mentioning and what people see. Majority of the hundreds of kids that we deal with, day in, day out, aren't going to ever compete for prize money or an award or a title or a belt. That's not what they're there for. And so those are the differences between box competition and the amateur level, and the availability of a community resource that has used the sport of boxing to help individuals achieve their fitness and their emotional needs that they have as people that are trying to do better.
And that's amazing. And I what it reminded me when you mentioned like the chunky kid, the chubby kid, and stuff like that, is that what you guys are doing is also kind of like building confidence in these young men and women. And I was talking to somebody the other day recently, and he was saying that what he thinks that every child and every person should know is how to defend themselves. It helps bring a level of confidence that never existed, and he was speaking personally from himself. Shout out to Maurice Howard. And so I just kind of I believe the same thing, and I think what you guys are also doing is you're helping build confidence for these young adults as well by training
And
them
I'll
this
give
way.
a shout out to Maurice as well, because I know Maurice. So shout out to Maurice.
Maurice Howard, you know him, the painter.
Yeah, I know Maurice Howard. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
do.
yeah, he's a really good dude, really good dude. And speaking of arts, and I know you guys, I know you mentioned that you implement the arts to help kids as well. Can you explain what type of arts you guys also incorporate into the program?
I will. And so one of the things that has occurred, the chairwoman of the board, Pastor LaQuetta Bush Simmons, is really the architect of this comprehension of knowing what the arts have the ability to do outside of the boxing. Boxing has really become, in our style of employing the boxing fitness training, attracts a lot of young people because they're dealing with self-esteem issue. They want to know how to defend themselves. It's a natural, migration to the gym because you start thinking, "Hey, okay, I'm not going to get pushed around anymore. I'm not going to get bullied. I'm going to learn something." But while they're there, what she wanted to do is make sure that we were dealing with the whole child. Boxing is a piece of it. But what happens after you've worked out, and you need to understand some other aspects of life. You need to understand how to get in touch with your emotions or get in touch with what's happening with you. And so you start learning how to do critical thinking. You start learning how to play chess. You start understanding what the move is and how your opponent looks at how you move, and you look at how you move against your opponent. That's one of the things we have there. The other thing is in terms of the visual arts. What exactly, when you begin to draw or etch a sketch a picture of how you're feeling or how you see your environment, how you see your landscape, how you recall in your mind to bring something out on paper that can now help somebody comprehend how you look at the world and how you see your environment and your home life and what you're doing from a negative to a positive. And then also too, the um, the performing arts, how you express in music, learning instruments, being in theater, poetry. These are things that she basically has put in motion, and even in July when all the schools are done with summer school and parents are wondering, what to do next. Product Fighting Chance has been able to put together a curriculum, which is absolutely amazing how she's done it, that goes from 8:30 in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening, which gives a parent an opportunity to know that their child is somewhere safe and engage for that entire time period for a whole month. That is not an easy feat to pull off by any stretch of the imagination. And so when you start talking about the attention span of a child or youth today, when we talk about, phones off, gloves on, it's hard to dial up on your cell phone or be on your cell phone when you got your boxing gloves on, or when you engage, when you got something else in your hands. And so what we find out is youth that come to that program that she's put together, they spend very, very little time engaged in their cell phones. It is the most amazing program. If you ever have a chance to see it or put your child into it, it is something that, we start dealing with the whole child. Plus, the kids that are there are going to eat up to 3 meals a day. So I think that's, I think a parent wants to know that their child is safe, number one, which we're very adamant about at Project Fighting Chance. Number two, are they learning anything? Are they engaging in anything versus just sitting around and waiting until I get off of work, or, I can get, Nana to get to you, or Big Mama can get to you. And then number three, they want to make sure that they're fed and that they're fed, healthy. And so we've been able to put those three components in place. And like I said, it's an amazing thing to look at that Pastor LaQuetta Bush Simmons has put in motion for that entire month to make sure that, we are implementing best practices outside of boxing that deals with the whole child.
Yeah, I love that. I especially love the first thing I have to address that made me laugh was like, we're going to have them for 8 hours. Of course, we're going to feed them. And I was just thinking, like, what are they going to starve them to death? Or of course
right. Unless they're trying to make weight.
Yeah. Hey, they're overweight. It is America. So, we're not going to feed them. Of course you're going to feed them. So I thought that was just entertaining to me. I was like, yeah, he's not going to feed them. Of course he's going to feed them, What I thought was cool was that you said, you mentioned chess. So you're teaching the kids chess and musical stuff. And then one of the lines that I really liked that you said, which was, you can't use your phone with boxing gloves on.
No, you can't.
Which is so amazing.
You can try. It ain't gonna be too good. I mean, yeah, something's gonna fall out your hand.
Too.
They've had try. Of course, you always got somebody that's the smartest one in the box, right? So they're gonna figure out a way to do it, but it's not worked too well. And the thing that's interesting is they don't want it to work well. I think what I've found working with youth is the fact that if you put the attention that you need to really put on them, that they're looking for you to put on them, you don't have to have all these other devices to, how would I say, babysit them.
Yes.
Youth want engaged, caring adults that are going to help them feel wanted and needed and appreciated. And if you do that, you're going to find out that they'll put away a lot of the stuff that we consider to be foolishness because they have caring adults that are interacting with them now.
Ooh, which makes so much sense. And we I just want to remind everybody that we are here at the Empire. Thank you guys for listening. If you're just tuning in, if you're watching the playback, we're here with Terry Boykins. He was just talking to us about the art involvement with their Project Fighting Chance, about how he teaches kids about other things besides boxing, because they said, we have boxing, but what else is there after boxing? What is their life after boxing? So if you guys are just tuning in, my name is Antonio Lee Miles. I'm the host. We have amazing other guests like Terry. Please like the video, subscribe. We're really trying to we're really working on building our channel up and building everything up. We have great guests, and share this out. But we're going to continue, right? And so, Terry, there's one thing that kept on coming up in the beginning of this conversation, and it's time I think we should talk about it, which is trauma, right?
Yes.
And so what is the most common trauma that you've been seeing with the youth, and what's your opinion on if this trauma is never addressed early on?
Well, I'll go back to that caring part. I think neglect um, is probably the biggest trauma that occurs. And, you know, hurt people. And sometimes they don't even know that they're hurt. And so when you talk about neglecting a child, this is where you begin to not really tie in with the emotions of a child, of a need of a child to be cared for. And that is something that is devastating when you're not paid attention to, or you're disregarded, or you're left to your own devices to entertain or educate yourself. It's very confusing, and kids grow up like that, and it's very simple. It's very hidden. It's the simple of a child's probably wondering, all you want me to do is go in here and turn the TV on and and watch the program, versus you taking time to show me how to prepare a meal, or help me do a craft, or what have you. What are you saying to a child to basically say that the most that I want to give you in time is 36 minutes a day, collectively, each day. The rest of the time you're going to be on the on the television, or you're on your phone, or you're on social media. And I think for a child it's very devastating. So neglect, I think, is one of the biggest traumas that we don't really understand, that we're doing to a child by just not paying attention to them. Okay, because a child will oftentimes grow up, and I know we have several individuals that, from being in homeless populations, that have come over Project Finding Chance and says, if I had had something like this when I was growing up, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I think
Mm.
if I had somebody, paying attention to me, I wouldn't be in this predicament. Countless individuals have shared that with us. So we know that's very um, um, expansive in terms of neglect. The other one is basically just the issue of abuse, physical abuse,
Right.
sexual abuse, abandonment that occurs. But if we go to the physical abuse, that becomes very devastating.
Hmm.
So many kids have been bruised and beaten because the caregiver or the parent has their own unresolved issues, which leads to anger and frustration and resentment. And now you're making a child believe that, it was their fault, that, mama got angry or daddy got angry, or, the caregivers, it was something they did. And so, which, results in a physical um, um, threat to the child. That's another issue. The sexual assault abuse. This is where we really have to be mindful of the behaviors we have, of our own unresolved sexual desires to fulfill something that was void in our life growing up, or not really explained, that we begin to sexually assault or violate a child. The trauma of that is significant, is long lasting, is everlasting. And so when we put that imprint, when we stamp a child um, with our own deficiencies or what we didn't have, but we take it out in a gratifying manner, we are sentencing that child to trauma that they don't even comprehend what exactly it is that is happening to them. And then you begin to have to think about, you know, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with this? When you try to have a relationship later in life, if you can do so, particularly when you start talking about intimacy. These are things that are oftentimes, we touch on little kids, and we don't think anything of it, because we're getting the gratification of control and power and manipulation, which is one of the biggest things. It's about this game that adults play with, and children play with children that have basically been abused. But these are the types of things that we've got to be very conscious of as far as the trauma. Um, and that right there, are all in the presence of violation. when you start talking about biblically, when it talks about to train up a child in the way it should go, and when they are old, they will not depart. That's true. That training could be good, and that training cannot be so good. But whatever they are trained on, they are not. That's what's locked in. And then you have to go through a lot of therapy and you know um, help, mental health, to really undo or progress beyond that because of your adverse childhood experiences. And we move so freely in normalizing the exposure to things that are traumatizing, violence, um, you know, um, just language and images. We don't really value the assets that we're trying to build equity in because of all the programming and the exposures we're giving kids to saying, this is normal, this is acceptable. Um, and then they grow up basically believing that I've seen it so many times that it must be right. And that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, things start to become normalized when they see something like, for example, like DV, domestic violence, and they think, oh, that's the way, that's how a relationship is supposed to be like. So I should expect that, for example, right? As-
I mean, I'll just be 100. People seen the video after the statute of limitations expired for, P. Diddy.
Okay.
Um, you know, I mean, that's something that my thoughts were like, wait a minute, that camera, that hotel footage has been around since the incident occurred. You can report somebody breaking into a room, but you can't report a grown man kicking a young lady in the hallway and tossing her around. I mean, how did that slip through? Um,
Yeah, it's a very questionable thing.
but that's normalizing. So now, what I'll do, I'll go in and I'll basically plead remorse. And I'm not saying that remorse doesn't exist, but you're sorry after the fact, only that you've escaped prosecution, that you be, you have this, come to Jesus moment that you want to, basically reconcile your wills. But that imprint, I'm sure even on her, to have to look at that video again and realize that some of that I do today is rooted in that occurrence. And so that video plays back in a child's mental state of being, which is now an adult. And what does it do to impact relationships and marriages and you raising your child and being able to exist in society? We have just not even touched the tip of the iceberg, let any of the melting pieces of what has happened with homeless populations and what do they deal with and why
Yeah.
really are they out in the streets.
Yeah, we actually have a clip that we were lucky enough to speak with a unsheltered woman named JoJo, and she kind of gave us what it's actually like living on the street of San Bernardino. And you guys should check that out. It's on the Empire channel. It's interesting. She talks about she mentioned one thing that was really interesting, which is there's a lot of homeless encampments, right, where like a group of homeless people be together, and she said that she doesn't like to be a part of it because when the cops come and raid it, everyone's everyone has to scatter, right? And then she said that she doesn't like that feeling because she feels like a lost puppy, like like
Uh,
where do I go? And so she's like, I prefer to just be by myself because that way I don't feel um like a lost puppy every time the cops come and break us up. And I thought that was a very interesting inside perspective of unsheltered person, unsheltered woman living there. And speaking of adults, Terry, because we can't catch every adolescence and help them with trauma. So does Fighting Chance, or maybe someone that you may know with another organization, help adults actually deal with trauma and better their trauma? Do you guys, or do you guys know anyone that anything like that?
we do. We get a chance to work with different collaboratives, agencies from Option House, and of course, with regards to women that have been impacted by, you start talking about domestic violence or DV or intimate partner violence. You have county agencies, Department of Behavioral Health has a abundant a number of resources for adult populations to participate. There's various groups that we have with regards to even juvenile or young adults that have resources available. And Antonio, you bring up a very good point, because one of the big things that we at Project Fighting Chance are continuously doing is promoting resources of what's available for you to deal with your issue, whether it be housing insecurity, food insecurity, transportation insecurity, issues of domestic violence or unhealthy relationships. A person has to make a decision on, does their trauma outweigh their desires to get help and access to resources to create resilience. That becomes the individual if they can understand how to process that and learn how to access resources. There are so many resources that are available in this particular county that is phenomenal. The question is number one, where do you start? And I think that's a lot of times where people get confused of not knowing where to start. And if they don't know where to start, they oftentimes are confronted with, I don't want people to know that I have to have these resources that I need to function or get to a better place. So there's a no shame, no silence approach that you have to take. And so I would encourage everyone to really look at their situation and understand that your objective is to get somewhere better. And the resources are your right as a citizen to be afforded those resources to help you get better. Because as you help yourself get better, you're going to contribute to society, which produces resources for economies, that programs can be placed, people can be hired to help you have resources in place. And so there's a whole nother economic engine that goes with these opportunities that people use resources to get better. And so they are out there, and we want to make sure that people take advantage. You could call law enforcement, you can call various churches and faith-based organizations, you can call your city government, you can call your county officials. Make these individuals accountable. Make them basically serve you as a people. They are public servants. You do not have to take that lightly. They are not celebrities. They are public servants, and their job is to make sure that they're providing resources to their constituents so that the environments and the districts and the wards they live in are progressive.
I love that. Hold them accountable. I love that. It's so true. And thank you for sharing that, because I think another thing that I really love that you said was that, is your trauma strong enough to keep you away from actually trying to fight it, to get, and that's a whole nother thing, because obviously there are people who we all have issues, obviously, to different levels and different extents, but it's the ones who are overburdened by their issues or their trauma, and they refuse to fight back. They just succumb to it, basically, and just say, hey, you know what, this is what it is. I'm just going to live this life, even though I know it can be better. I know I can fight better. And sometimes it's one individual like yourself or a program like Project Fighting Chance that could help give people that hope, that hope, which really does so much, what we need in our times, in our life, right? And a question that came to my mind when I was thinking about this, our conversation, Terry, is that, you came from a corporate world. I'm certain you're doing very well financially in the corporate world.
Mhm.
And what made you decide to collaborate and be a partner and an executive director with Project Fighting Chance? What made you want to join this organization?
Well, nothing made me want to do it, because I didn't want to do it.
Okay.
There was no, I don't think I understood um, the do-gooders function when I encountered Ian and I. We have this conversation. I didn't understand what exactly he was trying to do and what he was explaining to me. It didn't make sense. You got all this passion and you want to help people, and I get it. But I learned more about his skill set, about being a very, very accomplished boxing coach, and he wanted to do something. So I had to really changed my way of thinking about what he was saying he needed versus what I was set on and trained from a corporate perspective.
Can you explain that?
So, when you're dealing with the corporate world, you're dealing with objectives, you're dealing with performances, you're dealing with, you've got quarters that you have to produce and perform. You've got, year to date, you have forecasts, you have things that you're trying to meet your sales goals, your distribution goals, your marketing launches, your product launches, all these things that are, customer service, all the things, and how do you get orders, distribution, to your client. I didn't really understand this whole telling your story about what happened to you and how you're where you are today and why you've been dealt a bad deck of cards, and what is that all about? I don't get all
Gotcha.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
like what's the point?
What's the point?
Mhm.
And so I had gotten to a point where I stopped listening to the point because nobody was having a point. Okay,
Mm,
you've done that, but how do you get the product to the customer? And it's not going to be sitting up here listening to you whine and crying about what happened to you and all that. What I began to understand, and the organization has helped me greatly, is this word called empathy.
okay.
That's what shifted, is having empathy, to recognize that, everybody's path is not your path. Everybody's experience is not your experience. And I think what's happened here, we've lost the sense of empathy. And so what began to occur, they became very aware at Project Finding Chance of understanding my business acumen of structure and, risk management and, operations and training and implementation of programs and marketing to get something accomplished. I began to understand a little bit more about what they were confronted with wasn't getting to the market. Their message wasn't getting to the market. Then I had the aha moment, is really, this is not about me not understanding you or you not understanding me. It's about, are we using our skill sets to get the message to the market? And then if we get the message to the market, what programming are we going to have in place for individuals to begin to start working on creating resilience so that they can get back in the game that they've been kicked out of because of these adverse childhood experiences? And then we began to go to work. Then we began to really, meet and how would I say, understand one another. And
Yeah.
that's what's happened now, is we have gotten to a, we're in sync. It's a very interesting, the staff that we have with Project Fighting Chance, from coaches that are in place that are trained from the facility to the school sites. I can tell you they are some of the most unique, impactful, effective individuals that understand what our objective and missions are when we go to work. And what we do, we have a saying at Project Fighting Chance, and that is this: how you come to work will determine how a child goes home. You better come to work ready, because what you do with that child is going to determine how they see you and take it home. And if they see you raggedy and tore up and frustrated, or if they see you motivated and energized and ready to, take on the world, they're going to probably go home and show their household some things that the house doesn't even see. And they're going to want to start changing the culture and the dynamic about their own household as 8, 9-year-old kids, which is very phenomenal. I think the Bible does say out of the mouth of babes, which is, very, from a depository's perspective of how we put into that child. So those coaches understand and get that when they come to work, they are going to affect the child's life. And if they're going to stay at Project Fighting Chance, they're going to be affecting that child positively, or they will not be at Project Fighting Chance.
I love that because they're basically becoming role models. They're role models for these young adults here, and the real influencers, as they would say, right?
Correct.
Um, and which is super cool because children are sponges, right? What's the saying? Do as I say, not as I do. But
Yep,
the fact of the matter is that people do what you do, not what you say.
they
In
do.
reality, um, super side note. I don't even know I'm going to mention it, but I'm going to mention it. When you said depository, I don't know why my mind said suppository, and I was like, wait,
Okay.
that's not right.
Well, no,
So
no
that's
wonder.
not
Yeah,
correct.
well, maybe I don't know, but
It's going in one
I say
way.
depository. That's one way you can do it.
Either
When
way, it's going in. I guess
it's going.
Um,
Well, let's see. We'll let you. Well, it's live here, but the edited version maybe we won't have that. So we'll see.
yeah, adults only.
There you
Um,
go.
anyway, that's so great, and I really love that mentality. I like the structure, and I do. I'm going to assume, Terry, since you've been talking about this, that you're a man that follows the Bible and the Word, and I'm a strong believer in that you're supposed to be doing things that that you may not have seen that you're supposed to do, like. And from your story, it seemed like you never expected or even wanted to even understand what Ian, I believe his name, was doing,
Right.
and you never planned on doing this. But now, how long you've been involved in this program? For how long have you been involved?
Since 2016. Wow.
Since 2016, right?
Yeah.
Almost a decade.
Mm.
And I'm pretty sure in 2006, you probably never imagined that you'd be doing the work you're doing right now in 2016, right? I mean, sorry,
Yeah.
2024.
2006 first. Right. Right. No, I get it. I understand what you're saying. I don't think I didn't imagine doing this. I think we had a game plan, and it was. I think that's what shifted. I believe that we are on track to accomplish some very key objectives that we set in motion back then. And that was the coming to understand, the sides that have become very impactful. Pastor Laquetta has been with the organization, of course, almost 15, a little over 15 years. I think Ian has been, at this since 1998 or 1999, as part of his vision, his calling. And I think that, you know, I think I did envision that this is where we would be. There was nowhere else to go for me to keep my interest in doing something that was there before me. I got what exactly they were doing, but I understood that from an economic perspective, from a sustainability, from a resource, from a financial, from a growth perspective, from a risk management perspective, um, you had to create a plan. And I
Got
think
you.
that what's happening now is that collectively we've got an incredible board um, that is just on their game. And that game plan that has been put in motion at Product Fighting Chance is one of sustainability. We are
Yeah.
not creating things at Product Fighting Chance that goes back to 2016. We're creating things today in 2024 that will allow us not to be here 10 years from now, but the organization's ideology and philosophy and its responsibility to the community will.
Gotcha. And when I was referring to about 2006, like I was saying, like I'm pretty sure when you were working in the corporate world, you never imagined that you'd be working what you're doing right now in 2024. That's what I kind of meant.
I tell you what, I don't know, and not in this capacity. I think because my siblings will definitely share my mother's commitment to community and to people, to serving. I think that was a part of it.
Hmm.
Um, I was not absent of the needs to um, help people that are in need. I think I was really more focused on, I'm the youngest of seven, so I may be the being the baby in the family. I took a little bit of rebellion of,
Okay.
doing certain things, but I was more focused on helping people help themselves.
I love that.
And because I think I saw my mother and my father help people who were just interested in being helped. They weren't interested in helping themselves. I was like, that wagon is not going to get pulled over here. If you're not into a situation of using what I'm going to help you to get somewhere else, then you're not going to get what I'm going to try to give you. You just won't get it. It's just, you got to go stand somewhere else. Let's look at those individuals that really understand. And that doesn't mean they're going to get it overnight, but at least some type of progression for them to understand that your purpose with them is to help them get themselves somewhere. That's the
Yeah.
approach that I took.
That's so wild because I was literally thinking the statement today, which is a famous statement, which is like you teach a man to fish,
Right.
and it's just it's so true. You know, I love that. I love that teaching young boys and women how to young boys and young girls how to fish, and probably even adults too. You know, because it can probably transfer over to their parents, their older siblings, and it's
Yeah.
amazing. And I wanted to ask you, Terry, where did the idea for something just for girls after school come from, and what's that about?
Oh boy. So something just for girls after school. I'm going to go back to Pastor Loquetta and then Florida Alicon, who is with the DA's office. He's the bureau chief for um, the victim services. We looked at talk about boxing, and she's an athlete, and it was about what do girls deal with after school? Of course, after school, hours between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock are some of the most vulnerable hours that a child can be confronted with. But what's the environment that we want for girls after school? And so we began to vaguely focus in on something just for them with regards to how they go shopping or how they see themselves or how they defend themselves or how they protect themselves. And it was just the effort to really hone in on bringing in professional women who had experiences growing up but have moved through, whether it been going to school or career or both, that have attained certain things in life. And we wanted to give girls access to those women that could help them shape who they were becoming. And we did it, with the environment of being in the boxing gym, so that they can understand how to build confidence and self-esteem and not be afraid and be trusting, because some of these young girls weren't trusting anything because of some of the things that had happened to them. And so it was just something just for girls after school. And that statement was sending the message that it's not for the guys to come over, hang out, to kind of check out the young ladies or kind of hang out. And, it was really about them focusing on their inner self, so that they can bring the beauty out as to who they are.
That's awesome. And I'm certain that's another thing that helped boost their confidence, their self-awareness, how to be more ladylike and even feel more confident in knowing how to defend themselves too. I'm certain all those aspects have helped the young ladies.
Well, they had not only, Antonio, helped the young ladies, it helped the women that were unresolved with some of the issues that they've never had the opportunity to be in a program that gave back. I think some of them live vicariously through these young girls,
Mm.
that they finally had a mentor, that they were finally able to be the mentor that they never had. And
Ah,
so it did some healing. They had healing circles. And I think I saw more um, development and progress with the women, some of the women that were in the program, than it did for the girls that they were serving. Because you had a lot of
wow.
women that had some unresolved issues that they needed this. They needed to have something that could validate their purpose in life, that they were hiding from. You can hide behind your career and you can do successful, you can make your money, buy your home, get your car, but that don't mean that you fulfilled. And I think a lot of them had not dealt with some of the childhood issues by seeing it in a young lady who they could see recalled some of the stuff they were dealing with. They could pick it off. They just kind of knew that a girl was going through some stuff because they went through some stuff. The problem is they never had help getting through their stuff.
Wow.
That was
And
what we were doing.
so that's super amazing because basically the teacher becomes the person who is helped the most out of the whole program. That is amazing. I'm pretty sure that probably even happens for on the men's side, and probably even yourself. You probably have been fulfilled as well by doing this work as well.
Yeah,
I'm assuming.
and that's a whole nother component. I work a lot with men. I've had a chance to work on a program called the Man Plan and have done things working with men and the financial and emotional um, success. And, men are the most insecure creatures on the face of the earth,
Elaborate.
without a question. Without a question.
Elaborate.
When you talk about a man, you know, the comprehension of the created individual from the dirt of the ground, um, you have to really understand. And I tell people, particularly with fatherhood, if you want to understand fatherhood, you got to understand the man who's a father. He has set the course of who his family is going to be based on what he has been taught or what he has been exposed to. And if he is an unresolved individual, putting up the front, faking the funk, he's going to, by, a very, you know, not by osmosis, teach his children that. And they will become who their father is or is not. And so men have resorted to oftentimes violence or um, perpetrating because they don't know how to deal with who they are.
Wow, that is heavy. That is heavy. I think there's a
That's why
line
they
in the
come to the gym. That's why they come to the boxing gym.
Yeah, no, that's heavy. And it reminds me, I believe it's a line in the scripture, which is a man is what he thinks he is, basically. A man so is what he thinks.
Yeah.
So if you think yourself to be this, then you are that. And wow, super heavy. And ladies and gentlemen, if you guys are just tuning in to the live, this is The Empire. My name is Antonio Lee Miles. I'm the host. We're here with Terry with Project Fighting Chance. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share, comment down below if you're in the chat right now. Let us know that you're here, that you can hear us, you can see us, what you think about what's going on. If you're watching the replay, hey, what's up, you guys? We have many guests like Terry, and we just talked about some serious stuff, and we're going to keep on going down the road. Terry, you've been with this organization for almost a decade now. What's some of the biggest, most important things you've learned from being part of Project Fighting Chance?
Well, one of the biggest things I've learned is not everybody wants you to be successful with it. There are entities, there are individuals who have a need to want to see you defeated. That's probably been one of the biggest lessons that I've understood, and how you overcome that is being committed to your vision and your mission. The other
Can you give
thing
an
that I've
example?
learned, I'm sorry,
Can you give an example?
I won't give any particular examples. I'll just say that those individuals, I don't even want to call them haters. I wouldn't give them that much credit. I think I'll call them individuals who just don't really or haven't taken the time to really understand what some organizations are trying to achieve. And so, what I would say that um, having the responsibility to occupy a building, I'll give a shout out to Liddy Gutfield with the director of San Bernardino Parks and Recreation and Community Service, to understand the importance of not just having a building, but to have programs in that building that is serving a community effectively. Boots on the ground, implementation, game plan, resources, critical. And I think that has been the accountability, the responsibility to run a facility in the Reuben Compost Community Center at Nunez Park has been an incredible lesson in a responsibility and a joy to know that um, funds from a community are being invested in some of the most underserved populations in the city, but they have begun to respect and enjoy what we do. And they've shown that with regards to their contributions, which we've appreciated greatly. The other piece, I believe, is the relationship and the correlation about how we've done programs within school districts and how we balance between the community and those kids that are in the community are at, our program, or we're in the school sites from coaches that are from the community that are in, so they understand that are in their school sites. That's been a very significant benefit. But the other thing that I think I've learned a much, I'll give a shout out to the Kappa's Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, who actually meets and works with, the program at Project Finding Chance on a number of programs, and has been for a number of years. But I think the collaboration, we are here to serve the community, and that's what we do. We have been given stewardship over a lot, and I think we've been responsible as good stewards to take care of what's being given to us. We are a no nonsense management type of organization. We are going to focus in on what's going to benefit the kids, and that's where we go to work at. All the other foolishness, we do not partake in. We don't spend a lot of time on that. We don't get caught up in that, because it is what it is. It's foolishness. And we will call it as soon as we see it, because it asks that, are we focused on what we've been formed to do? If you're a tire, you go in a vehicle. Okay. That's what happens. That tire has a function on that vehicle. We have a function in the community. We have a function in the child's life. That's what to stay some of those things, versus to say, screw it, I don't need it. There's resources. I've got, money enough to not have to be dealing with somebody else's BS. But you don't leave it there because it's bigger than you. And so I think that's what I've really learned. That's what we learned as an organization, that this is bigger than us. And we're going to make sure that we manage this organization so that people understand why we exist. And we don't exist for them to play games with, being okay with not having resources available for a child that is experiencing trauma to not exist. We take this very seriously, and we're going to commit to that objective, to be able to reduce childhood violence, aggression, and trauma. Because nowadays, who would ever thought that you would be carjacked by an 11-year-old child, or home invaded, or blatant shoplifting? These are children. Something's wrong here.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Heavy. One of the biggest things that I like that you said, which is that this is bigger than just me. This is bigger than just us. And I love that. I always love that mindset, because it's just like, you know what? There's a bigger purpose in what I'm doing. I'm just a vessel in the bigger picture, a messenger, as they say, a prophet, if you want to go biblical,
You got
and
a ship in a big ocean.
there
And
you
I
go.
guarantee you, if you think that ship is bigger than the ocean, just stay out there for a little while and wait for the storm to come and see, who's afraid of who. Because the ocean
Yeah.
ain't afraid of the boat. I
Ah,
guarantee you.
you'll be screaming. You'll be screaming out there, "Ah, mama,
Yeah, I think that's
mama."
why the scripture says, "Peace, be still."
Yeah.
You don't have that kind of power.
Yeah. And wow, it's making me think of all this faith stuff, which is interesting, which is, I won't go down that road. I won't go down that road.
I
It's just
get it.
making me think
We'll
about
pick
it.
it at another conversation. We'll get
Yeah, it
back
was
to that.
making me think a couple of things, and because I know, throughout our whole conversation here, and again, thank you, Terry, for being on. You
Sure.
kept on going back to biblical in the word, and so I really, my assumption is that you're a firm believer in the word and the things that are in it, and purpose, right? And it even reminded me of we talked about a lot of the men suffering because of their, what is it? They put on a facade, right?
Yeah.
The big facade. And I think once a man finds his purpose in life and his role, it makes everyone underneath him, if we're talking about like the family structure and purpose and community, it makes everything in order. Once a man can
Yeah.
get his purpose in life in order, then everything gets in order. And I remember hearing this structure, and I believe in it. Many people may not believe in it, but I do believe in the order going: God, man, woman, child. Or some people would say God, man, purpose, woman, child.
Mm.
And so I just wanted to speak about that. But I you us keep talking about faith made me just go down that road and think about that. But I wanted to ask you, can you explain when it comes to the organization what the 4Ds are and what they're about and how that came about for the organization?
So it goes back to Ian Franklin again.
Hmm.
Um, Desire, dedication, determination, and discipline. It is what you walk into the gym hoping to achieve. Your desire, determination, your dedication, your discipline. Those are the 4Ds. They learn the principles. The youth learn the principles with those 4Ds. We help them develop and cultivate those 4Ds so that they can understand some foundation. You know, some kids leave their homes or leave communities without any foundations of anything. They just grow up and they leave. And then they go out into the world without having a foundation. And what Ian has been trying to do is give them a foundation of something you can hold on to. Principle. You get your orders from military. You learn in basic training in law enforcement and military about the foundation. And this is what this is at Project Finding Chance. And along with the four Ds is what we have as a campaign that's on the building, which is called I Am a Champion. And I would encourage anybody to visit, projectfindingchance.org to understand what we mean when we share with a child repeating to themselves the words, I am a champion. We have seen the transformation, and that transformation of I am a champion is created in the foundation of the 4Ds.
I love that. I love that. I think discipline is one of the hardest things to do for human beings, especially nowadays. But I also realize that it's one of the most beneficial things that a human being can have in their life.
Mhm.
Um, One thing that kept on reminding me because certain questions I would ask you, and then you would bring up Ian, and I believe you mentioned a little bit about it. But how did you meet Ian? How did that come about?
Boy, you're gonna have to have a 2-hour segment for that. Ian, I'll let
Okay.
him tell that story. But anyway, but we actually met through a common individual that's in the community, Dr. Joshua Beckley, a Collegiate Christian Fellowship. And I've known Dr. Beckley since I became a college student.
Wow.
And Ian was a member of his church, and we just happened to have conversation, and Ian wanted to get some help. I think he was trying to get some board members to help structure his organization. And so the introduction was made and the conversation was had. And this is a part that I didn't understand. And I think after I talked to Ian, I don't think I saw him for a couple of years because what he was saying didn't make sense to me, and I wasn't going to spend no time with somebody that didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And then we reconnected some time later, and he had grown and I had learned a little bit more about dealing with these organizations, nonprofits, and that began a whole new relationship. And so yeah, and that's where Ian and I had the chance to talk. And he actually came out and spoke at one of the programs that I was working on, which was the Million Father March, the Fatherhood program. And we, at that particular year, we actually were talking about the impact of childhood trauma from a father's perspective, and how
Okay.
fathers basically saw trauma and what they thought about trauma, even though they were part of creating it.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. I'm assuming the million. Well, I want to say Million Man
Father
March.
March. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Million Father March. Yeah.
Was the name inspired? I'm assuming it was inspired by the original thing that Louis Farrakhan created. And can you explain a little bit what the Million Father March is?
Yeah, the Million Father March, Philip Jackson in Chicago, south side of Chicago, took the inspiration, of course, from the Million Man March about
Yeah.
how fathers play a very important role, not only in their child. He came from the education background. I think he was with the Chicago Public Schools, CPS. And so Philip believed that the child's education begins the first day of school. And the
Wow.
first day of that experience of child is the responsibility of father taking that child to the first day of school. And so you imagine in kindergarten, if a father's taking you to kindergarten, and that father, should they be alive when you graduate high school, think about the outcomes of what that child's performance is in schools when a father's involved, particularly an African American father.
Wow, heavy. And I just heard a statistic the other day, and I'm not sure how true it is, but I know, and obviously I'm pretty sure you've probably seen it yourself, that, obviously divorce is high in America. It's super high, and the family structure is down the drain right now, in the shit bowl, as they say. And basically, this gentleman that I was listening to, he was saying, if we're talking about the African American community, the Black American community, he's saying that if you have a child today, more than likely another man will raise your child when they
It's
graduate.
true.
And that's just a sad statistic if you think about it. But I guess, it's the facts are the facts. But I really like what you just said about walking a child into kindergarten and then also walking them to their high school graduation, same father, being involved, which I think is, unfortunately, it's like a rarity now. It's like a unicorn. It's a
Yeah.
unicorn today.
Yeah, it's a consistency. And I think this is one of the things. And also, too, I will debunk the myth that when people talk about African American fathers, that they're not involved. You look at statistic, African American fathers are some of the most involved parents in a child's life. We have allowed some of these, you know, propagandists to define, a role that particularly African American father has, and then and Latino fathers as well. But you know, don't rely on all the craziness that happens in social media. Get the facts, and then as Father's Day, upcoming, get the facts, understand, and then also too, when you start talking about the issue of fatherhood, you can't talk about fatherhood without talking about co-parenting. And there's another partner in that, and sometimes that partner is not a spouse. It happens to be they are the parents, but they may not have been ever married. And so we have to really promote the importance of co-parenting, so that they can be active in a child's life. Because what drew them together may not keep those two people together, but a child is born.
Yes. It's so interesting. I'm glad you mentioned the aspect about the misconception about Black fathers not being involved with their child's life. And I remember there was a loophole, that it was brought to me saying, they'll say that, Black fathers are not involved with the child's life, but they say that because they may not be living in the home with the
Correct.
child, but that doesn't mean they're not actively involved. And apparently, I saw another statistic, or heard another statistic where it said that Black fathers are one of the most involved fathers out of all the races or
The
nationalities.
groups.
And I was like, okay, that's a very interesting term.
Come to
Um,
Project Fighting Chance, and I can tell you, in any day of the week, you are going to see fathers, and particularly Black fathers, in the gym watching their kids in a boxing, fitness, arts enrichment program. And they don't just stay there for the child's boxing. They will oftentimes be present as the child is engaging with other aspects of that child's life.
that is amazing. I wanted to ask you about something else, which I believe is called For Positive Knowledge and not Street Positive.
Correct.
Can you talk to me about that and what it is and how it started?
I can. Both of those, For Positive Knowledge was the parent company. Street Positive became an entity after it was a campaign. But Street Positive was a formation to really make it relevant to individuals that had been, involved with, gang-involved populations, formerly incarcerated. They were street. Life was on the street, and the dialogue, the mindset, the culture. Um, but it had to basically do with being relevant to what those needs of those populations were. But I found that a common denominator was financial and emotional. And when I began to work in the prisons in the late 90s, actually beginning in the late 90s, I found out that a lot of those individuals that were incarcerated had been molested or abused as young men or boys growing up. And that had impacted their financial trajectory, particularly their retirements over the lifespan. because they're incarcerated. Their earning power had been very diminished. And so when you look at someone who is spending, 10, 13, 14, 15 years incarcerated, um, as a result of coming up in the streets, and where that puts them, when they come out of being incarcerated or returning citizen, or reentry when they're in their 30s, from somebody who's gone to school and started working in their early 20s and contributing to their retirement, or their life savings. You think about how far behind, in addition to how inflation and cost of goods and so forth have occurred, you're putting somebody at a significant disadvantage, um, when they have those marks against them going into their 30s because of not having the foundation and structure, with regards to that street positive. That was one component of dealing with that. The other component had to do with working, with men who had adversely affected the well-being and safety of women, who have disrupted a woman's life because of his inability to control himself or to know what to do as a result of having a relationship with her in terms of her personal safety as well as her financial security. And so we began to do these workshops, and we began to really look at how do we take certain populations and help them get the skill sets and the resources so that they can basically become competitive in the marketplace, but also what would help them to health, so that they can break generational cycles and not have it repeat. Because if you think that if you've done 13 years in the pen and you raise a child, particularly a young black boy, and he's done 13 or 14, 50, you think about what happens to the progression or the accumulation of wealth within the African American community, is the fact that you are such at a deficit that you can never keep up. And the statistics with regards to how they, everything, compared against white folks. But, you think about, what this particular group has far as money in retirement, and then what African Americans have, and you look at education, you look at all these different criteria. And I wanted to really look at doing something that changed the narrative. And that's how, even going back to meeting with Ian, we were able to connect with Street Positive and Project Fighting Chance. That gave us an opportunity. So when we looked at collaborating, when I said that, don't go creating your own thing, this is where I had the opportunity to really, it was a big decision, to um, not be so active with Street Positive as much as I had been, because once again, it's bigger than you. And I opted to go with the team that was talking about the vision at Project Fighting Chance, and I had surrendered what I was doing at Street Positive. People want me to come back to do the man plan. I had been doing, workshops. I'd done COVID. I had done some things with regards to doing the man plan on, virtual. And many people have asked me, what do you do next after Project Fighting Chance? And it will most likely be the man plan. It will basically be working with young men and young and middle-aged men about having an effective game plan that deals with their trauma and helps to um, minimize the impact of their trauma on their financial sustainability over the lifespan.
You know, it's so interesting because it makes me think that, you know, trauma can affect a person's finances. That's what it,
Significantly.
yeah, it's what it seems like. Even going back to being incarcerated, you can have a trauma and do an attack or do some crime, and now you've impacted your life and your finances, obviously. So it's so interesting. So I've heard this saying, which is like, money can't solve everything, but it could definitely be a good down payment.
Right.
Something along those lines, which I really love. And, you know, I want to congratulate you, Terry, and the organization for getting Community Champion Award for
Yeah, thank
2024.
you. Thank you.
Um, and I look forward to seeing more of the Man Plan. And if there's anything or any way we can help you with that, please let me know, and I'll be glad to help with whatever we can to help you do that. I think it's really good. I think especially as Afro American men, Black American men. I think it's really important to look out and help one another. You know, obviously help everybody, but um, you've been on this planet longer than I have, and probably been
Hmm.
seeing it now that. And this is just my opinion, ladies and gentlemen. I feel it seems like um, not only the man is being left alone, but definitely the Black American man is kind of just being like dusted away. You know what I mean? And so it's good to hear you say these things about I want to help men because I feel I've no disrespect to women, but I've been hearing a lot about like I want to do this thing for women, I want to do this thing for women, I want to do this thing for women, or I want to do this thing for these other communities, and I'm just like, man, like what about the men? Like, what about men? And then I'm like, what
Amen.
about black men? It's like we're like just fading away, like being forgotten. And it's like, and they're saying these things like as if men already own everything. And I was having this conversation with this woman before, this young lady before, and I was like, she's like, yeah, I'm just doing this thing where only women can be involved and only women can do this. And I was like, well, I was like, you're kind of technically like discriminating against men, technically. Like, do you realize that? And I think in their minds, and this is just my assumption, is they're thinking that okay, misogyny and men rule all of these things and blah blah blah. But even if men are in control of everything, there are still women, other communities in their organization. They don't just say we're solely having only women in or whatever. So just to circle back, I'm glad to hear you say, hey, we want to focus on men and helping men because in my opinion, it seems like men are being forgotten, especially Afro American men.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take another shout out. I'll give to Terrible Terry Washington, who, of course, has done an incredible, feat of defeating some of the top, boxers in the world. And he's at a different stage in his life. You can go to fightingchance.org and learn about that in terms of when a boy becomes a man. And I think that he really will provide some incredible insight to youth with regards to what's coming next in his career, his boxing, his pursuit, but also his give back to the community about what he wants to do. So when you start talking about becoming a man, a responsibility, and to see a young man or boy come into manhood at Project Fighting Chance for all those years and accomplish what he's accomplished, people need to understand his story. I think, and so much has been given to him about his boxing prowess and his abilities. But when you really look at what you're just saying about not forgetting manhood, I think it's about not forgetting a young man's journey to becoming a man, which oftentimes we don't cover. So take a look at it, Terrible Terry Washington, and those that want to have him come out and speak and share. He's going to be a hot person to connect with before he gets too expensive. So you better get him now.
Yeah, hey, maybe you can help be our connecting link so that way you can maybe get him on the platform and talk to him about what he does.
I'll try. After these guys get up there, they start getting agents and managers, and you used to be able to just go down the hallway and talk to him. Now you got to go see his people,
Got
and
you.
so we'll see what happens. But I think we can work something out, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure your name has a lot more weight than my name.
Yeah, we'll try. We'll try. We'll put a call into him to see what he can do.
Hey, we'll send the carrier pigeon and we'll see if it poops on anybody and we'll kind of go
Excellent.
from there. One thing I wanted to mention is that
Sure.
just to, and I'll cut this point off, which was I ran into another young lady or a woman, and she was telling me that she wants to help deal with women and trauma and all this stuff, and I remember I was telling her, I was like, did you know? And she's like, I want to help women prevent from doing suicide. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah. I was like, did you know that men are still the highest number of people who commit suicides in the world? And I was like, you got to think that a lot of men suffer in silence. No one really cares what a man's plight is. It's just like, hey, just go to work, provide, blah blah blah, boom. Um, so thank you for
Well,
the plan and things that you do.
Antonio, what you're saying, the issues, the real issue. That's why we don't spend time dealing with foolishness. We
Yes,
don't. We're just not going to do it. And it's
yes,
because we're dealing with suicide. That's because we're dealing with trauma. We don't have time to get caught up on grown folks that are not doing the right thing. We just don't have time for that. And so when you start talking about suicidal ideations, we say, take a look at projectfightingchance.org, understand what we're doing. The very things that you're saying is what we're doing and is the reason why we want to focus in on. That's why we exist. Boxing is what we do. Communities who we are. We're committed to reducing childhood violence, aggression, and trauma. And because those things today that a child is dealing with will carry on to them doing things not so good sometimes as an adult. And we want to catch it early at Project Fighting Chance.
I love that. And that's why I love the work that you guys are doing. And I want to thank you guys all again. And I also want to thank everybody for listening. Please continue to comment. And we saw Joe, I saw you out there, and I saw someone also representing Terry. So shout out to you guys for commenting down there. Um, Terry, what's something that majority of people, maybe even close people, may not know about you? And it could be anything. It could be something as small as like, hey, I have an addiction to Pop-Tarts. What's something
Oh,
that many people, even close friends, don't know about you?
wow. I'm not a very, I think the big about, I get a chance to be involved with the public and individuals, but I'm really, kind of a spoiled seventh child of, two parents from Alabama that were relatively poor. And not a lot of people, see that part of my life. They've seen, of course, the corporate, they see, managing some of these programs, but I'm more simple than I think most people probably understand. And I prefer to keep it that way. At this stage of life, I don't think it's something that there's nothing else to prove. There's work to do. Nothing to prove, but there's work to do. And so, you know, I do, I enjoy my sunflower seeds, so no Pop Tarts. So for the most part, I think it's just, just I just do what I do, and I'm cool with that.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Um, Terry, thank you so much for being on the Empire. What current projects is Project Fighting Chance working on that you're working on? Can you let us know what some of the projects that you're working on?
Oh, boy, wow, good gracious! Like I said, it goes back to that incredible team. Shout out to Gary. I see you. I thought you were supposed to be working right now, Gary, but I see you tune
Oh
in.
snaps! Oh
I
snap!
see. And so we got Gary. It's one of our board members. We value one of our new board members. What we're working on right now, we are going into summer school. So our coaches will be on different school campuses here on the West Side coming to summer school. We're excited about that. But our big program just goes back to Coach Ian Franklin. He has a chance to really put something that was his dream in motion that he's put off because the organization had different objectives. But he likes coaching. He likes really exposing youth to this phenomenal template and system that he's put in place to create champions as well as deal with trauma. So his boxing camp is going to occur. The 4Ds boxing camps for champions and trauma will occur from June 10th through the 21st. And he's going 2 weeks in. If you can get a spot, you better register pretty quick because I think they're pretty limited. But that's going to happen. So we get a chance to help Ian fulfill his dream after spending so many summers getting individuals ready for competition. He's got a chance to focus on the youth in this community, which we're excited about having him be able to be home this summer to do so. So that's going to be the 4Ds boxing camp. And then in July, we do the Project Finding Chance Summer Enrichment Program from July 2nd through the 31st, from 8:30 in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening, focusing on young people, giving parents the reassurance that they have a safe space for kids to be, whether they come part of the day or they come the whole day. You've got the reassurance of Project Finding Chance that the staff will be there to engage your kids and keep them safe while you are trying to take care of your business and earn money to keep your family and your roof over your head. We got your kids when you got to go take care of your bank, and we'll make sure that they come back to you, hopefully better than they were when they left you that morning when you dropped them off. So we'll do that, and then we move right into our our fall programs, and we come up with our big event, which is Jabathon, where the community gets a chance to come in and work out, and they get exposed to Project Fighting Chance. That will be in November. And then I believe in December, we'll go into cooking breakfast. I think if Liddy Gutfield lets us come back and cook breakfast, shout out to Regina Dean and the team that was making pancakes and all the things for the holidays. So many different things that are going on. I know we're going to be, shout out to Children and Family Services with their sports fair coming up. I know we've been asked to showcase our boxing program on June 15th. We got a number of community events that we're going to be participating in as part of the community. Now, well, Community Champion was the Parks and Rec, but there also was Children Deserve Success. I'm going to have an opportunity to go to Disneyland in July as a part of that, recognition. So I'm looking forward to that. Shout out to the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools for, providing Project Fighting Chance that recognition. So there's all kinds of things that was happening. So we're going to get this thing, Antonio, and we're going to get through 2024 and we'll get ready for 2025.
Awesome. Congrats. And so many things going on, and ladies and gentlemen, if your kids go to the program, they will be fed. So don't worry. Whether
they will be fed
they
well.
They will be fed, immediately when you said Disneyland, I was like, oh God, $25 for a popcorn. So, because I know it's so expensive.
No, I think I'm getting some perks. So, I'm maybe I'll leave my wallet at home.
Hey, even better. That's what I'm talking about.
There you go. Yeah.
Make sure to write Splash Mountain for me. Take Splash Mountain for me, man.
I'll do it.
Awesome. Terry, I want to thank you so much for being on the Empire. Let's say 100 years pass by, 250 years pass by, half a millennia passes by. What would you like your empire to look like? Whether community service work, working with Project Fighting Chance, corporate world, a man of faith, family. What would you like your empire to look like regarding those things 500 years from now?
I think, there was a statement that was made to myself and a mentor, Kevin Hall, years ago by a mentee. And he had asked, where were you all when I was growing up? And I think I would like it to be, we were here. We were available. And if that is something that I had to put on a headstone, it was, we were here, we served, we were available.
I love that. Estamos aquí. I love it. I love that. Because, you definitely do hear that nowadays from certain people. And thank goodness for, I guess, social media, the internet, because it can be used in positive ways, like how we're connecting right now and we're able to get this information out to other people. And so, again, Terry, I want to thank you so much for your work. I want to thank Project Fighting Chance for what they do and everything. It's been truly amazing. And I would like to see if you can please share all of your information with people if they want to send their kids to Project Fighting Chance, they want to connect with you. Can you please let everybody know how they can do that, support you, donate, work with you, send their child? Can you please let everybody know how they can do those things?
You can. Thanks, Antonio. I tell you what I would like to do with all the individuals that are tuning in and supported Project Fighting Chance. If you would go to projectfightingchance.org, you'll get an opportunity to look at the programs that we have. We have the staff that we have. Learn a little bit more about what's available to you, how you can sign up. We'll be putting the July sign up just shortly. But you can enroll your children in the program. You can volunteer. We do occasionally will have employment opportunities. So there's a lot that's at projectfightingchance.org. And so, I encourage you to go there. And if we become an organization of choice that you would like to support with your financial contributions, we are good stewards of your money. And we have a saying, we don't take your money unless we give you the honey. We don't just take money from you unless we give you something that is sweet to your taste and which you can enjoy. And so we are very serious about the deliverables that we have at Project Fighting Chance. So whether you want to support as a volunteer, whether you want to just learn about what we're doing, or you want to contribute to our organization, projectfightingchance.org. Please feel free to connect with us. If you're a school district and you want to learn a little bit more about what we do with expanded learning, please get a hold of us and we'll get a chance to touch base with us, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you're a corporation, you want to know a little bit about more what we're doing to address childhood trauma before it gets to your workplace in the next 10 years, because those kids that are in elementary school and middle school are coming to your workplace. The question is, are you going to be ahead of the game as an employer with the trauma that they had as a child, so that childhood trauma doesn't end up disrupting your bottom line in your workplace? If you go to our website and you look at our corporate partnerships and what we're doing to make sure that we are addressing some of the issues that you're probably seeing in your workplace as a result of behaviors, work time being taken off, or issues, or coping skills, or competitiveness with regards to other, staff. We understand that a lot of that comes from trauma. A lot of it comes in rooted from issues that are in domestic violence within homes. If you want to partner with Project Fighting Chance on what we can do together as partners from private and public to get ahead of this issue so it doesn't end up in the workforce and the workplace becomes a place where you can reach your bottom line, get a hold of us at projectfightingchance.org.
Awesome. And ladies and gentlemen, if you guys are tuning in, the link to their website should be in the description. So you guys can just click right on it and it should take you right there to their page. So that way you guys can connect to everything that he said. And, I think a woman one time told me, Terry, that I'm not going to take your money unless I give you that honey. So it just kind of remind me maybe,
Well, there's two components we're going to have to say for another show. We'll get back to that, Antonio. But I definitely understand your point, my brother. And we'll have to do a holiday show or something. I don't know.
Yeah, just
But that's
having fun.
yeah,
We
yeah.
just
Have
having
fun
fun.
with
We
it.
like to have fun out here, folks. We like to educate, inform, but we also like to have fun because I personally believe that laughter and smiling is like a battery to the spirit, battery to the soul. So it keeps it charged up, keeps you going, and so we have to smile and laugh and have a good time while we're out here. And
We
so
got to do that. And then we also
definitely,
have to make sure that we have men and women who've died to ensure that we can have this moment defending this country and Memorial Day. And so we got to also remember that, yeah, we have an opportunity to deal with trauma, but we got people who've given their lives um, so that you can even have an opportunity to deal with your own trauma, because they're not here no more for defending this
mm,
country.
shout out to the veterans. Thank you very much. And that's definitely another story to talk about is the veterans of America and stuff like that. So definitely appreciate and shout out to all the men and women who put their lives on the line from any sector, organization, any level of the military. Thank them all for their work and their service. Um,
Absolutely. Well, Tony, come to the gym. You get a chance, get that workout.
oh
We'll
yeah,
get
we
you out of that
definitely.
outfit, get you into your boxing gear. Um,
Hey, I got to work on my jab anyway. And then so I wanted to thank everybody for tuning in. I wanted to thank you all. I wanted to thank definitely Terry. Um, we learned so much about him. We learned about him starting off his career in the corporate world, about how he first met Ian and he was like, I don't know what this boy's talking about. I'm gonna move on. And then how he came back and how he's been with the organization and how he realized that the organization Project Fighting Chance is bigger than him and what they're doing is bigger than him, and that it's not just about boxing, it's about empowering these young individuals. And we also learned about the girls side, which is the something just for girls, and how it not only affected the young ladies, but it infected not infected but affected the teachers as well. And so we learned so much today, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in. Please like the video if you haven't, subscribe to the channel if you're on the playback. Comment down below what you guys thought. My name is Antonio Lee Miles. This is The Empire. We have many great guests. Please subscribe. We're working on building this up, so we appreciate everybody's help. If you like what we're doing and you want to contribute to keep this great work going, we have our descriptions, what's there in the description box, like PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, to help keep this work alive. We're really doing great work. And again, I want to thank you guys all. I also want to thank Terry. And is there anything else, Terry, that you want to share before we get out of here?
No, just wishing everybody with self care and enjoy, have a safe, life.
Definitely. And a happy and fulfilled life, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll catch you guys
That
all
part.
in the next episode. All right? Peace.
I